body lay motionless. But in her mind, she walked through Paris, felt cobblestones underfoot, smelled the rain on stone. A VR headset pulsed gently, feeding her brain a new world. Meanwhile, across the globe, a paralyzed man used thought alone to move a robotic arm. The boundary between brain and body is beginning to blur. From neural implants to virtual worlds, we are testing what it means to think beyond flesh. Can consciousness live in circuits? Can sensation be simulated or self be digitized? As we peel the brain away from the body, we may find more than freedom. We may find something we weren't ready to lose.
Welcome to Extreme Brains, the podcast that embraces the chaos of a world gone wild. I'm David Evanoff, along with my fellow brainers and chaos enthusiasts, Sam Goldstein and James Woods. We are broadcasting to you from the semi-luxurious Evanoff Studios, located on the west side of the over-industrialized haven of South Salt Lake City, Utah. South Salt Lake City, Utah, the only place you can be south and west at the same time. Each week we'll dive headfirst into the absurdities of modern life, sharing sharp critiques, unfiltered humor, and just the right amount of existential dread. Our tagline, 3 voices, 1 mic, in a world gone wild. Our brains without bodies. You know, I heard all the time when I was a kid, Dave, if your brain wasn't glued into your skull, you'd forget it. Is that what we're talking about?
Forget it as in leave it someplace?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. This is our last episode of the season.
Congratulations.
Right.
Season 2.
Season
Brainers,
2.
thanks for being here with us.
And so it's so we're going to go back in time. It's 1968. Season 3, episode 1, Star Trek.
Yeah.
So this is Star Trek's been out 2 years. It's a big deal. Everybody loves Star Trek. And so they're thinking, well, we have to do something big, something that really gets people. And so in that episode, Spock is kidnapped. And this race of people removes his brain. And why do they remove his brain? Because they're going to use his brain as the city's living computer to run it's a city civilization underground, and they're going to use his brain to run everything, keep track of everything, do everything, keep track. Now, what we don't know in this episode is it's still Spock, or they just, or like we do sometimes with our digital devices, you hit a button, it takes you back to factory settings. And does it take Spock's brain back to the day he was born and gives him this new task of managing this species, as opposed to also being Spock. So
I love that episode, by the way, Spock's Brain.
So you
classic.
That.
Oh, yes. Come on. Dr. McCoy has to put the brain back.
Right. Right. And I think once you break it, there's no fixing it. I don't know how you're going to put it back, a brain. But anyway, that's the... So if you think about quantum computing, which I know nothing about.
Yet.
But what I know about it is what they say, which is that instead of like most computers using 0 and 1, it has a third setting in which the 1 and 0 are combined. So it's, instead of just off and on, it's off on and off on at the same time. Somehow, that allows the computer to be faster and do more. So you see these articles that say a quantum computer can solve a problem in 10 or 20 seconds that would take the fastest computer we have today years. Right? So now we begin to think about, well, so the brain is 80 billion cells, and every cell, they don't all do the thinking, white matter versus gray matter, but let's assume they're all important. You need them all. And each one is connected to up to 50,000 others. and in any given millisecond, each one is communicating with another with up to 5,000 others. So I'm not a mathematician, but it would seem almost an infinite number. But there is a number that you could compute, 80 billion times 5,000, whatever. And so if you had a computer that could do that many calculations in a millisecond, then and you knew how to control it, and you could cool it, which is the problem.
Oh, yes.
Right, it's the problem. People don't understand sometimes. They're playing games on their phone and doing stuff, and all of a sudden it's, God, my phone is so hot. Well, what made it? Why did it get so hot? And again, I'm not a technician, but I think what gets hot is all of those computations back and forth, back and forth. It's a lot of electricity, consumes a lot of electricity, and the byproduct of the electricity is it does something, it thinks or whatever, it solves a problem, but it generates heat.
Yep.
And so if we got to the point where a quantum computer could do that many calculations, 5,000 times 80 billion or 100 billion, then you probably could mimic a human brain.
Wow.
Right? Because when you say brains without bodies, we started with taking a human brain and taking it away from the body, but really the more romantic and seductive idea is the brain, or the knowledge the brain contains, living on. Right? Again, the stuff of science fiction, or that popular comedy series on cable where when people die, their head explodes, but when it explodes, everything that they knew is transferred digitally, and you get a digital version of the person. If you have enough money, you live in a beautiful place. If you don't have enough money, they basically freeze you in black and white, or they feed you water and bread or whatever the case may be. But that's the other side of it, is it really brains without bodies, or is it the sum total of the knowledge the brain contains and what the brain can do? So we talk about the computer doing, quote, calculations, meaning ones and twos, but we could talk about the brain doing calculations. Is it the sum total of the brain's calculation capacity that lets you think? So again, it's figuring out how to take all that information that's in the brain and download it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, but this isn't the only. I mean, you can search and find out how many TV shows or TV series or movies have been about removing brains or removing knowledge from brains. What was the other really popular series where everything you knew was on a little disc and you could change bodies?
Oh, wow.
What was that series?
I don't remember that one.
That was a weird series.
That might be fun.
But you could change, so that little disc had the sum total of everything your brain knew. It didn't have, so it had the acquired knowledge. Would that be the content? But it wouldn't have the ability to do the operations. You'd need a brain.
Oh.
You'd still need a brain.
It was the program.
It was the program, right? This encyclopedic program of who you are. But you still needed a brain to run it.
To operate it.
So that's a different kind of, right? It's a different, and you think of all these permutations from taking the brain as it is, putting it in a jar, like on what's
Futurama.
that? Futurama.
Yeah.
Right, on Futurama.
Nixon's head.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In a jar. Right? But you'd need, but again, would that brain, because it's a cartoon, so the brain consumes a lot of energy. I mean, the brain consumes, 25% of all the sugar and oxygen we take in, because it's high fuel use content, right? So in Futurama, when they put the brain in a jar, there must be a lot of sugar water, right? There must be sugar water in there, but there has to be oxygen too, because the brain, those are the two commodities, oxygen and simple sugars.
Well, those are the tubes. That's
Are there tubes that go in there?
think
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
tubes.
I don't remember what the scene was, what it looked like, but so that's one possibility: is the whole brain comes out, and you find a way to hook it to some screen or printer or something right? So it's a static thing. It has knowledge, and now it can operate on that knowledge. It can tell you things, right? The other possibility is like this other TV series or cable series I'm forgetting, is that you can download, or the TV series where they die and download their knowledge. You can download everything you know, but not anything involved in the operating system of how to do it. So you end up with, okay, here's James' brain. Here's everything James knows. What are we going to do with it? I don't know, because it's in there, but how do we get it out? Right. So that's the second part, is some kind of system to get it out if you had living tissue. But I think the probability of having living tissue, kind of the Frankenstein thing, right? They never tell us whose brain Dr. Frankenstein used to build the monster. Now that's another interesting aside of, he's making this guy, so why make him look so bizarre? Why not make him look a little more attractive so he fits in? I mean, they made him look like. Anyway, that's
in the novel he looked good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the novel, he looked. So the first time I saw the movie Frankenstein, I was this kind of weird guy, and I thought, I wouldn't build a guy like that, because then the townspeople are going to know
gonna be scared.
who he is. And now there's a series of commercials, right, for the phone, and Frankenstein makes dinner for Dr. Frankenstein, and then he's out riding his bicycle, sitting on a bench, and a woman's got a chicken, and he's talking to the mummy, and the mummy's going, and he's laughing, and he sees the chicken, and he looks at how to make Korean fried chicken, right? I mean, it's yeah, I don't know why you would do that, but so that's the one issue of, can you take the living tissue, separate it from the body, keep the living tissue alive, and I think that's a stretch, because I envision like this science fiction film where they do that, only to discover that when you separate the brain from the body, that there's parts of the body the brain needs in order to run. And so you've got this brain, and here's the researcher saying, okay, James, tell us about yourself. And the brain just sits there, because it just can't operate in isolation from the body, right? But but the more attractive part is downloading everything you know. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, I was thinking about that because you showed me not too long ago how you had digitized all your photos for a lifetime.
Right.
And I'm doing the same thing, and James has been doing some of that. And so we are making these strides at making our life's memories accessible in small spaces.
Right.
When's that next step?
Well, and the other thing we're not really talking about is research that's going on now, which is trying to make the brain itself work better if you're paralyzed or you have other disabilities, right? So think about people with cardiac problems who have a pacemaker put in. So what does the pacemaker do? It when this heart begins, and I'm not a cardiologist, but when the heart begins getting a little erratic, it senses it, and it can normalize it.
Yeah.
So you don't have a heart attack, right? So it does two things. It knows it's a problem, and then it's programmed to send doses of electricity to the brain and to the heart. Everything's fine. So now imagine we had a device with this twofold operation, and the first fold is whether it's implantable or sits on the surface of the brain, or whether it has to be under the skull. I think under the skull it has to be, because the skull diffuses electrical activity coming from the brain, which is why EEGs are not as precise, and biofeedback using EEG is not very precise, and because it's billions of cells firing diffused through the skull, so it's a degraded signal. But if you put it into the brain close enough that it could monitor, and imagine we had a device that instead of monitoring just the one organ, the heart, it would monitor all 80 billion brain cells in the brain. And it would monitor the homeostasis of the electrical system in your brain. And if you began building up electrical activity that could lead to a seizure, it would know it, right? Because it's monitoring the whole brain, right? But not with 150 electrodes. One device that somehow can do it, right? And the waves are out there because your dog knows when you're going to have a seizure, and your dog knows when the weather's changing. So the waves of abnormality are there electrically, but we can't pick them up. But let's say we had a device that could, and then let's say the next step was the device could then send electrical pulses to those parts of the brain to cut off the abnormal firing and prevent a seizure.
Pacemaker for the brain.
Pacemaker for the brain. And I don't think this is so far-fetched.
Yeah, it's not outlandish, right?
I don't think this is so far-fetched. Yeah. And I'm on the
new project,
the science advisory board for a company called Exenter, EXENTER. They're based here in Utah. And they've developed a cardiac monitor that doctors can use to monitor what the heart is doing in real time during heart surgeries. And the device goes in through a catheter through your leg and into the heart. And it what used to take, and I'm not an expert on this, but what used to take 2 to 3 hours to get ready for this surgery now can be done in 15 minutes. And what used to take a bank of machines now is one small machine that tracks all, because it's this sensor can pick up all of these different electrical signals coming from the brain, right? So the CEO of this company is a visionary, and he thinks that this kind of monitoring, real-time monitoring for risk, can be done with other parts of the body. And I think the brain is the hardest because of the number of cells and the variety of what it does, and the mind. You have a mind on top of everything else. But I think it'll happen.
Yeah.
Right. So there, it's using computers. There was another episode of Star Trek, a very early one, where a former captain of the Star before Kirk,
Pike.
Yeah, Pike is paralyzed, and he's in this device, but he has a life, right, outside of that. So there, his brain is in his head, but he has a life outside that he thinks is real.
Thanks to those bubble-headed aliens.
Right.
Yeah.
But he thinks it's real, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not real. So now they're implanting electrodes in the motor cortex to see if it could stimulate in paralyzed people, making the brain work again. So these are not people who are paralyzed because they've had a spinal cord injury. These are people who have the spinal cord, but the damage is in the brain, right? And
is that the Elon Musk thing?
I don't know that he's the one, but it could be. And these are studies. See, there's a woman who was paralyzed for many, many years, and she was able to control a robotic arm with her brain.
I've seen news clips of that.
Using neural signals, right, from the motor cortex. So, so that's the possibility. But again, how does thought is created? That's the problem. If we're talking about a heart or a liver, it's an organ. It doesn't think. It doesn't. But here we have the physical brain, so it might help us with epilepsy or motor control, right? But will it help us live on forever, right? And again, in this, the funny part of this one series is some big macho guy, and the only available body was an old woman, so they put his psyche into an old woman, so now he's an old woman. right? Everything with everything he knows, right? So, I think it's coming, and it's coming, pretty fast. But then the next question is, so brains without bodies is a big topic here, because you immediately think of a brain floating in the ephemeral, which is another Star Trek idea. Mm-hmm. Roddenberry has so influenced society and what we think, right? But these ephemeral brains that are so advanced that there's no organ. They're just floating in the universe, right? Which is kind of an interesting idea. But here the umbrella's bigger. It's, can we influence the operation of damaged brains? Can we program the brain? Is it so far-fetched to think that I could take someone, and this is what you see in the Matrix, right? Mm-hmm. And I could, but in the Matrix, the bodies are all in vacuum, and none of them are really. They think they're living a life, but they're really not. But in a real world, could I create a program that matches your neural net? Because again, the brain stores information as electrical files, right? Mm-hmm. So could I create a file similar to a neural net, and your brain is like a big screen digital TV. I say, think about your kitchen, whoof, that image, think about your daughter, whoof, that image. Well, where does it come from? Well, obviously it's stored, and it's not stored perfectly, so every time you think of it a little bit differently, but the core is there. So imagine I figure out how to create neural files. We have the makings of a movie here, right? I create neural files, and one of my neural files is flying a helicopter, and I can upload it. Now, that's the other problem, is how do I upload it?
You airdrop it. You airdrop it. Yeah. Dave, I have this song idea. Let me airdrop it to you.
So how do I get it in there? But suppose I could get it in there, like in the Matrix, and then you can fly a helicopter. Even though, have you ever flown a helicopter before? No. No, but now I've uploaded this information, and you can say, I know how to fly a helicopter. And the question is, do I upload the experience of learning, where all of a sudden you said, I don't know how to fly a helicopter, and you said, yeah, I've flown a helicopter a million times, and you have all these memories of flying a helicopter, or is it just the knowledge of how to do it, and you say, I've never been in a helicopter, but I know how to fly it. Right? So now these neural programs, and then before we take a break, the ultimate idea would be, if I can, again, different idea of brains without bodies, if I could take your brain, reproduce it digitally, so I have a quantum computer that has enough calculations per millisecond to match what the brain can do, that's storing information in neural files. I've just made that up, by the way. We can look at it during the break. Is there such a thing as a neural file? But we're going to call it neural files. And in doing so, not only can I program you, but you can live forever and keep learning. So it's one thing to say, okay, I've got your brain, I put it in stasis, I can communicate with it, I've created an avatar that moves and talks like it's you, and okay, fine. But the next step is to be able to say, I've also enabled you to acquire new knowledge. And because you're digital, you can acquire that knowledge now much more efficiently and much faster in walled trial learning, and I've made you God. So there we go.
And everybody's a god.
And everybody's a god.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that'd be the last thing we need.
Should we take a little break?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Thank you, Brainers, for being here. We'll be right back after this number by the band Sigmund Freud.
So fine, music and colors swirl around in her heart where joy is found. She's a star in the sky, dancing so high in a world of her own where melodies fly. With art and a tune, she'll light up the room. Ellie's song is the beat of her soul's truth. chatter begins, she just pretends. She's a star in the sky, dancing so high in a world of her own where melodies fly. With art and a tune, she'll light up the room. Ellie's song is the beat of her soul's true bloom. A teacher saw the magic in her mind, told her she's a bird soaring with time. With autism, her mind shines bright, a beacon in the deepest night. Now Ellie knows she's special and strong. Mind is a kaleidoscope where thoughts belong. With art and music to share her view, showing the world something brand new. She's a star in the sky, dancing so high in the world of her own where melodies fly. With art and a tune, she'll light up the room. Ellie's song is the beat of her soul's true. Ellie's song, her melody true, tells the world, just be you. Autism lights the way, in her mind she'll forever She's stay. A star in the sky, dancing so high in a world of her own where melodies fly. With art and a tune, she'll light up the room. Ellie's song is the beat of her soul's true bloom.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the band Sigmund Freud. Welcome back, Brainers. Sam, here's my concern. We download everything onto my little hard drive. It's my life. It's my universe. And I give it to my daughter, and she washes it. It goes in the laundry, in her coat, and that's it. I'm gone.
So
I want to be in a big neural brain out in space so my daughter can't wash me.
that's an interesting observation. But I'll tell you about my friend Rick Lavoie, who as a kid, his dad, he lived in Boston, and I don't remember what year, sometime in the 60s when the Boston Red Sox won the World Series or something, and his dad got him a ball autographed by all the players, right? And he kept it in his library, in his office. And he comes home one day, and his kid, who was about 5, says, Daddy, look what I did. I cleaned your ball for you. And Rick holds up the ball, and you can just barely see. You can't see any.
Somebody wrote all over it.
So, and kids, right? You got to love them. So, during the break, we took a look at how fast would the computer have to be to match the brain, right? So why are we asking that question? Because here we're not using the physical brain to keep alive because it's tissue. I don't know how we'd keep it alive long enough to for longevity. It has to reproduce itself. You need the body to make it all work. But here we're talking about disemboweling, not taking the physical brain. See, Roddenberry, he thought of the physical brain going someplace else, right? Because at that time, nobody even thought it's possible.
Right.
Here we start thinking it's possible. What we figured out is that in order to take everything you have in your head and have a computer that could use everything you have, all that knowledge, and use it efficiently and work like a human brain, would take quadrillion calculations per millisecond. A quadrillion per millisecond. And that is a 1 with, that's actually a 1 with 15 zeros. Okay. And the quantum computers, today's computers don't even come close, but the quantum computer we're talking about could do well, let's see. What I just said is what the quantum computer could do.
Okay.
But the brain needs a computer that can be quintillion. And there's 1,000 quadrillions in a quintillion. So in order for a computer to really use the brain, again, when you say I'm downloading information, what you're downloading is all of this digital kind of 1, 0. information, but you need. So how does the brain put it together? When I say think about your kitchen, there's probably a few million, if not more, brain cells that all fire in a certain pattern, and you see the kitchen, right? So sometimes on your digital screen you get these little glitches and you see little. Well, that's when we can't remember something or we remember part of something. It's the same kind of thing. It doesn't fill the whole screen in, right? So in order for the brain, in order for you to have a computer that can use the data the brain's going to give it, which means it has to operate like a brain, we need a computer that's 1,000 times faster than the quantum computers we're just thinking about making. So let's go back and look at.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance. Well, there's a chance. Let's look at, you've got the computer there. Ask it since 1980, how much faster have computers become?
Oh, great
Because
question.
faster is, I think it's one way of asking, can it do it?
Yeah, how much more computation?
How much you're right. How much faster has it become? And that would be 45 years. How much faster has it become in 45 years?
And it's exponentially.
And I think it's exponential.
Yeah.
Millions to trillions of times faster than
Okay.
1980.
Okay? And then ask it, is it faster and faster every year, or is it the same progress every year? In other words, from 80 to 81, it improved a little bit, but from 2024 to 2025, it improved a lot. So that's the exponential idea.
Certainly
Are
memory.
you using chat or Grok? What are you using?
Copilot.
Okay, Copilot. So now you're going to ask it at the rate. So there you go, right? Okay. What does it say?
It says computers do not get faster every single year in a simple automatic way. It would almost have to.
Right. Well, okay, so now ask it given what it knows, how long will it take to be able to do a quintillion calculations
that's
a
a great
millisecond?
A millisecond.
Right. How long will it take
How many years do we need?
How long will it take before a computer can do a quintillion operations in a millisecond?
It's thinking.
It's thinking, and I we have this pregnant pause here, but how far away is it really?
As best knowledge. I just saw another great head in a jar movie, the new Wednesday.
Oh,
The teacher at Wednesday School is Christopher Lloyd, who of course played
Back to the
Uncle
Future,
Fester in the
Right,
movies.
right.
So now he's the teacher, and he's just an old head in a jar,
Oh,
and he teaches all the kids. So it was a great little nod to the movies.
Yeah, so it says the goal you're asking about is 1,000 times beyond the fastest computers that exist today.
right, but it won't tell you how long it will take. It won't. Yeah, I think you have
It's
to push
a
it.
secret.
Answer
That
the
means
question.
they perform in 1 second what you're asking about doing in 1 millisecond.
Right.
We're not going to get there.
1 quintillion ops per millisecond equals a zettascale. We're learning a lot of new terms here.
Yeah. Ah. So the supercomputer Frontier can do a quintillion calculations per second. They did that in 2022. But we're decades away, and it may even take longer, depending on the hardware, right? But so as you say, yep, there's a possibility.
Yeah, so you're saying there's a chance.
So there's definitely a chance. So what does the future hold? Wouldn't it be interesting if they could download everything you knew, but not your mind, not your identity? So there's research to show that fMRIs, which is radio waves going into the brain, and they shoot in a circular way from one side or picked up on the other side, based on how long it takes the radio wave to get through your head. It's the software, creates a 3D image. So when people look at fMRIs, they think they're looking at a picture of the brain. They're not. They're looking at a 3D image of density that's been built on an algorithm for how long it takes the radio waves to get from one side where it shoots to the other side. And it goes pop, 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 meaning in a circular way. It's constantly. So an fMRI can take real-time pictures. We've talked about fMRI research with kids with ADHD, where they get biofeedback to make a little part light up and they pay attention better. So the fMRI detected conscious awareness in people with in vegetative states. So they're completely vegetative, unresponsive, but the fMRI shows that they're aware of what's going on around them, even though they're not awake and not responding and not.
Wow.
Right.
That's scary.
And Michael Gazangana's research in split brain, so the corpus callosum is the primary connection. The brain has other connections, but it's the primary connection between the two sides of the brain. I think we've talked about this, that I see kids who have partial or full agenesis. They're born separate. The two parts of the brain don't communicate very well. And what he demonstrated in split brain research is that when you sever the corpus of callosum, the two halves of the brain begin working independently. And it's like you have two brains. Right? And one is not aware of what the other one is doing or aware of what the other side of the brain knows. Right? We know people like that.
Yeah.
You haven't had corpus callosum agenesis, but they, one half of their brain has no idea what the other half of their brain
They could use some patch cables.
is actually doing. Right. So they've tried to look at. There's a project called the Human Connection or Connectome, Connectome Project, and they're trying to map how the brain works. So the Blue Brain Project, trying to create small-scale neural models about how the brain works, and they don't get very far. Even today, they can't replicate what the brain is able to do.
That kind of power.
That kind of power, right? So it's interesting that when you think about evolution, it did take 6 billion years to get this brain. So
yeah,
it's not surprising.
It's not surprising it would take a little time.
It isn't surprising that maybe it's going to take time. And then the question is, would you encode personality? Would you? Again, you can probably download someone's knowledge. If you had a capacity to download neural nets, although it's unclear how do you do that, and it's unclear that how many different neural nets does the same brain cell participate in? Because if a brain cell only worked to remember one thing, you couldn't function. That brain cell, even if it's 80 to 90 billion of them, it still does more than one thing, especially when we're talking about memory or motor movements, playing the piano or the guitar or whatever the case may be. It does. I mean, when you start thinking about this, then the first thing that happens is I need a drink.
I'm tired.
Holy cow, I can't wrap my head around it. And then you think, well, maybe I need a hallucinogenic to try and expand my conscious awareness and wrap my head around it. Or maybe it would be great if we could go back in time and take people like Jules Verne and give him today's knowledge, and with today's knowledge say, what book would you write? You wrote 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You wrote Let's Go to the Moon. But what would you do today?
Yeah.
Right. What kind of, where's your thinking outside the box today? And now there's some concerns about that new movie that's out where this guy's, or it's a series where this guy's brain has been hacked. Haven't you seen that?
Oh, no. I'm not familiar with that
Yeah,
one.
he's a CIA guy, and somebody's hacked his brain.
Oh, so it's kind of a Manchurian Candidate
Right.
thing. Oh,
But
okay.
they've hacked his brain,
Yeah.
and so they know everything he knows. But again, it's a very simple, I'm hacking your brain for what you know, right? Not necessarily what you can do,
Yeah.
right? And so as you begin thinking about this, you think about the ramifications it has in all kinds of areas. I'll give you an example that most people aren't aware of. So if you, let's say you're in an accident in our litigious society, somebody's at fault, and you file a lawsuit. And somebody sits you down and says, well, what are your problems? And let's say you're not completely honest, so you make up problems you don't have. Or let's say you're semi-honest and you amplify problems that you really have. You make them seem bigger than they are, right? Or let's say you really do have those problems. And in my work, the mind plays a significant role in how people interpret their level of trouble. And so some people are really having a lot of trouble, but their mind says it's not that big of a deal. And they don't report a lot of discomfort, although everybody who lives with them reports that level of discomfort, right? And in my work as a neuropsychologist, we say some people are eggshell plaintiffs, which means if I hit you over the head, it's like your head is an eggshell. If I hit you over the head with a blow that wouldn't really hurt anybody else, but cracks your head, I'm responsible for that. I can't blame you and say, look, you have a thin skull. This is not my problem. You know, if I hit anybody else besides you, they would have been okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can't claim that, right? So you can't.
You hit, so you're at
Right. You can't.
Right.
You can't claim that. So where am I going with this? So my field has tried to develop tasks that would be able to tell me if you're faking. And there's three areas. If there's malingering, you know you're faking. There's dissimulation, where you're making a mountain out of a molehill, right? And there's lack of effort, where you just feel overwhelmed and you're just not trying as hard. You could try harder, but you don't feel you can. It's more of a mindset thing, right? We're not good at differentiating those. We can find the outright malingerer, and some people are naive enough to think that they can do that. Well, whatever the committee is in Utah that determines how these expert evaluations go, and I do them all the time. In fact, I was telling you guys I just came from testifying in a trial in Chicago of a baby with a brain injury. We've tried to create more fail-safe mechanisms. So they say it's okay to film it. So you can film the person taking the tests or having the exam within understanding that there's privacy issues. But and some people are very unhappy about that filming. And the way these kinds of litigations work, if you're a plaintiff, you see the experts your attorney hires for you, and they don't film it because it's not. You don't have to. It's not mandatory. But when the other side says, "I want you to see my expert because I don't trust your expert," then the plaintiff lawyers want it filmed. So it isn't like everybody has to do it. It's only if you ask for it. And in my field, there's been some concern. Most of the professional organizations are against it, that the recording devices are intrusive, the technician in the room is intrusive. You have to have somebody do it who's certified so you can prove it hasn't been tampered with, right? And there's a concern that it makes people anxious. Okay. And I've been recorded dozens and dozens of times. Well, the committee now has reached out and is asking if I would talk to them, this committee that made this rule, because the defense lawyers, meaning the people who defend for the insurance companies, have requested that be changed. We get rid of that again. It only came on 10 or 12 years ago. Before that, wasn't required. And so this committee that consists of judges and lawyers is trying to decide, well, what do we do? And they're only talking about neuropsychology because physical exams with an orthopedist or whatever, they're not going to film those because of the privacy issue, right? So they're really talking about assessments where you're sitting talking to people or they're taking face-to-face tests, things like that. And in my experience, it doesn't make a difference for most people, even with the camera in the room. But the argument about the intrusiveness of the camera has gone away because I can have a camera the size of a button and a little tiny disc that can store 10 or 12 hours and power itself, so it's not intrusive at all. Mm-hmm. There's no technician, there's no wires, there's no... You should see some of the stuff where I've done some testing where they put up a green screen behind me to try and block anything from behind. I mean, it looks like you're filming a movie, right? But that intrusiveness is gone with these little tiny devices. I mean, not even a GoPro. They're talking about something smaller, right? So what's left is the determination of how it affects the person psychologically. Does it make them more anxious? Well, I don't know. It could. Does it motivate them to do their best because someone's watching? Or for some naive plaintiffs, might it be an opportunity, they think, to show everybody how impaired they are, but they go about doing it in such a way that it's obvious that they're faking, right? I haven't talked to the committee yet, but I've taken it 3 steps further, which is what do we do with the... most of the time they do nothing with the film. It's mostly just an obstacle. They don't show it at trial. They don't... Right. Every once in a while you might use it for something, but with the way technology is developing, what if I have a program that they have that can subtly pick up little movements of muscles in the face, movements of the eyes, that demonstrates you're not telling the truth.
Our lie detector there.
Right. And what about that? Could they use it for that? Right. And nobody has really addressed, because the technology is changing so fast, nobody's really addressed that issue. And I say this because what it's come down to is not the physical brain or the damage to the physical brain. It comes down to the mind and how you think about it. And I don't think we'll ever be able to transfer minds. I think we'll be able to transfer knowledge. Maybe we'll be able to transfer operation. That I can take your brain and use it to create music. Right? I have you in a jar in my recording studio. David, make some music. But will it impact the mind, the thinking part of the brain? Because where is your mind? It isn't localized to any one place, and so nobody really knows how the mind works. And so when somebody says to you, you're mindless, they really don't understand.
That's not correct.
They don't understand what the mind.
So when you ask me to create music, my jar brain, I'm no more than AI at that point.
Right.
Because I'm just going to, by numbers, create music for you. My artistry, my emotion,
from your mind.
That's out
comes
there.
from the mind. Right?
Yeah.
And there's some theory that's been around for a long time that says the decisions the mind makes, the operations the mind makes, is a reflection of the constant feedback it's receiving from all parts of the body. And if you have a mind with no body, it may not be able to function. It may feel kind of disemboweled.
Yeah.
So we should. Yeah. Anyway, that's where we are. We'll take a break and then come back and talk about dog minds.
Perfect. Thanks, Brainers. We'll be right back after this number from the band Sigmund Freud.
Your code is important, please hold tight. Am I doomed in this endless void? Forever stray, love destroyed. Can you hear me on the line? Can you hear stuck in limbo, losing track of time? Time moves echo in my mind. Disconnected, love so hard to find.
Welcome back, Brainers. That was the band Sigmund Freud. Here's our last segment of the last episode of Season 2. Thank you all for being here. What about our brain, our dog brain?
Well,
Disembodied.
And the dog has a mind too, right?
Of course.
So I think that research will start with trying to remove, a simple brain from an amoeba and see if you can transplant its brain, or a brain that's mostly motor cortex, mostly involves movement and not thinking. But that issue of consciousness and mind, the brain is adaptable, capable of generating experience with limited physical output, but it's very tied to the body. And you try to separate mind from flesh, right? So what we're taking the physical body out of it. What does it do? Does it help? Does it hurt? How does that work? Hypothetically, if you say, okay, so I want to be Frankenstein. I want to take a brain, and the problem with Frankenstein is he digs up people who are dead. So the question is, once blood stops flowing through your brain, how quickly does it say, okay, we're not coming back?
We're out, yeah.
We're out. I know that
That's what the electricity's for.
right. Yeah, to recharge it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So to keep the brain, so first of all, if I'm going to keep a brain alive outside of a body, I have to have constant glucose and oxygen delivery, hence the tubes, a precise temperature. Now, why is that important? Well, at some point in our evolution, we stood up. And being on all fours has a lot of advantage. But among them, it's your head is down away from the heat of the sun. When you stand up, you expose your head immediately to the sun. And so standing up had certain advantages, but our evolutionary progression is we gave up thick skin, fur, speed because of four legs, the positioning of our head, our ability to swallow. We've talked about this before, that our species chokes more than any others because we've taken up space with vocal cords that other species don't really have, and so you need a precise temperature. Look at the temperature variation. If your brain gets 6-7 degrees hotter than it should be, than your body temperature, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
You're in a lot of trouble because it can't handle. It wasn't a good idea. I mean, I don't know who was around when they decided, hey guys, why don't we stand up? Let's see if we can, the first kind of apes. And when one ape said, oh, what a bad idea. That's not a good idea.
I'm going to sit down.
Let's just stay up, You'd have to control pressure, right? Think about children born with hydrocephalus. The brain begins to build up lots of pressure. You'd have to control blood chemistry. We haven't even talked about that because the brain has all of these there's no arteries, but arterioles, veins that feed oxygen and glucose to every single brain cell, right? Little milkmen. And each one's got a little route, and every day he brings, he's got 100 cells. He's got to stop at each one. Here's a little oxygen for you, and here's a little glucose for you. It's got to get everywhere.
Yeah.
And when they trip, that's called a stroke.
So we have a distribution problem, and then we haven't even talked about it. We have a waste removal problem. How do you get rid of the CO2 that's generated? How do you get rid of, what in neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, and they're constantly regenerating, and because they degrade, they're flushed out through the spinal fluid, and in our urine, you can find metabolites of dopamine and serotonin that have kind of worked their way out. Well, so now you need not only to feed it and make sure that you can't just have one big tube because that tube has to somehow distribute to the whole brain. You have to keep that brain going. And what happens if you lower flow state, meaning the speed with which something's moving through,
Right.
then the first thing that happens, all these little capillaries and venules, they just collapse because they're only being held open by the pressure.
By the pressure?
Right,
Yeah.
by the pressure. So now you have to have a waste removal system, and then on top of that, what happens if you have a bleed? Well, there's no blood. Well, what are you sending through these veins to keep them open? Saline. Okay, so you got saline with sugar in. All right. So, but will that work? You can keep a brain alive for a while with just saline, but eventually it's not going to work. And then once you take it out, you have to reconnect it. So you can't take it out and put it on a shelf and say, well, let's wait to a couple of weeks. No, there's this haste of, hey, I've got a liver. Let's get on that plane and deliver that liver because it's starting to die as soon as we. And when they take those organs, you see them holding the liver, right? They're not feeding it. They're not doing anything to it. It's a hope and a prayer that it stays alive, right? Because it's living tissue. And then as you reconnect it, you have to make sure that there's no air bubbles. Because you get air bubbles, you're going to get the bends, right? No, there's no leaks, no air bubbles. Then you have to have a way of preventing clotting. Because as soon as I remove the brain from your head, the blood stops moving. So I have to have a way of removing your brain from your head and draining it
Draining it quickly.
or the blood starts to clot. And when it clots, it eventually degrades, and what's left is the iron, hemosiderin. And on CT scans, that's what the CT shows you after, 6 months or a year after a brain injury. They don't see any swelling or any brain clots or anything like that, but they still see the iron. The iron is there, right? It's interesting that blood is so heavily.
Does that ever go away?
No. The hemosiderin just kind of sits there.
Uh-huh.
So you'd have to have a way to keep the brain happy during that time. And when the blood flow returns, you'd have to have a way of controlling the pressure so that the brain doesn't just explode.
Oh my gosh.
And the biggest problem, if we're taking, your brain and putting it in the body of someone whose brain is gone, like Mr. Spock, connecting it to the spinal cord. Motor pathways, sensory tracts, brainstem connections, millions to billions of nerve fibers. And you have to hook them all up correctly. You can see where one of these Larson cartoons, and the guy comes out and says, my brain replacement worked really well, and he's looking at this person, but his head's on backwards and his body's facing the other way because he didn't get connected right. And he thinks he's walking forwards, but he's really walking backwards.
Well, that's how Roddenberry fixed it. He, if I remember right, Spock, Dr. McCoy hooked up Spock's vocal section of his brain so that Spock could tell Dr. McCoy how to repair the rest of the brain.
Right, how do you like that?
Yeah.
That's right. And then you have to connect cranial nerves, right, which is facial movement, swallowing, balance, whatever. And the heart is controlling all of these systems in the body, so it has to be working right. And then you have to make sure it doesn't reject the new body you've put it in, right? And that's a big problem with heart transplants, right? You have to take all these drugs for immunosuppressant. And then there'd be the ethical issues, right? So, I read this novel where they were able to change living people's genetics such that as the cells in their body, their skin, their organs, because they're constantly dying off, reproducing itself, it could turn you into anybody you wanted to be. You could be Marilyn Monroe, and within a year, there's enough turnover in in all of the cells in your body, and you become Marilyn Monroe. So, how do you support the brain during transfer? How do you avoid damage when you make connections? How do you connect the spinal cord? How do you control immune problems? And we've sort of conquered that with liver transplants or other transplants. How long do those people live? Not great. And with heart transplants with kids, the heart you give them doesn't grow.
Right.
That's the other thing. It's not you put it into your body. So if I did a brain transplant, whatever your brain could do. It wouldn't learn anything new, or would it? I mean, this is a real interesting and strange dilemma.
So with that notion, then, our best bet is to download our brain, save it in our futuristic quantum computer.
Download all the neural
files. Neural files. There you go.
Right. So, and I think it's
patent pending. Sam
the neural
Goldstein.
files are these sets of complex directions that orchestrate. Well, let's say you have 80 billion brain cells, and every one has its own number. And so the neural file for remembering your daughter's face would have the brain cells that have to fire and in what sequence they have to fire. So it would say brain cell 4,287,347,221. You fire now, and you tell these 50 other brain cells to fire, right? And so it's this telling it what to do, but it's even more complicated because what we haven't even discussed is that while one neuron is sending an electrical signal to up to 5,000 others telling it to fire, it's also sending signals to others telling them, stay still, don't fire. Mm-hmm. So it isn't just the program is you fire, then you fire all these guys, and then all these guys fire, and then all these guys fire, until we have 1.5 billion nerve cells firing in the right sequence, and all of a sudden Dave says, I see Evie. Right? All of a sudden he has that image in his head. But it's also telling certain cells not to fire so that you don't end up going, I see Evie with a carrot nose. Right. Who did that?
Yeah.
Right? Stop firing those carrot cells and
I think we should probably let our test subject go and just maybe not try this today.
So we can leave with a simpler task. Could we have a smaller goal of downloading certain things? Is it possible that I could wire you up to some kind of a device that is sensitive enough to read your neural firings? Because now an EEG or a QEEG, it's measuring alpha, beta, theta. It's really measuring very gross measures of hundreds of millions of cells firing at the same time, right? It's measuring different waves of firing. But let's say we had a device that could actually be more sensitive than that. And I lay you down and I say, I want you to think of this. And as you're thinking of this, I capture that firing pattern in your brain. Again, I have to have a computer capable of capturing
That
quadrillions or quintillions of pieces of information at the same time. And then, remember, it's a millisecond, which is what? 1/1000th of a second.
Mm-hmm.
Not even 1/100th, 1/1000th. So then you have to multiply that by 1,000. And you only have you're only up to a second. Right?
That's a lot of data.
That's the problem. It's a lot of data.
Remember, the good thing about our podcast is that not only do you get all this beautiful science from Sam, but we talk a lot about movies too. So, Brainstorm, Christopher Walken,
Right.
Natalie Wood.
Right.
They recorded those events on 2-inch tape. I love that. But that's what it did. It recorded those life
tried to,
events
yeah.
so you could share them with others.
Right.
There we go. 2-inch
Right.
tape. I better go. I got some old boxes
You
out
got some
in the
old boxes.
Not going to work.
Nope, not enough data.
And I don't think, again, we're done with the tape, but you'd have to have a hard drive capable of.
Oh,
Can you imagine when they first start doing the research? When we first started using digital effects, the first one was the little film we made for parents of kids with ADHD, and it was 30 minutes. And at that time, the editor could upload 1 minute of video to the computer
yeah.
and manipulated it, and then had to download it back to the tape as a finished product. Like it's
Sure.
it's like when we used to record. I had a 4-track machine when I first started, and I'd record 3 tracks, I'd mix them, and I'd put them on the 4th track,
Bounce them down.
and then I'd go do 3 more tracks. I'd mix them and add them. So I could mix some parts, but I couldn't mix the whole thing simultaneously. And now kids don't even they have no idea. And the same thing with film, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, when we first started, we had a bank of 1 gig hard drives for the Mac computer.
Or 1 meg.
Or was it 1 meg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have out there,
was that-
sitting there in my history museum, a 20 meg hard drive that cost me $400.
So this was a little brick.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember how big it was, but I remember we had 60 of them,
Yeah.
and they were all wired to each other.
Yeah.
And-
That sounds about right. 60
Right.
meg, give you a couple minutes.
Right. And so remember now, so with what we're going to do, the first guys who are going to do that research are going to have, it's like when in one of the movies when they discover the place where the Nazis hid all their loot, and they open the door and they walk in and the light goes on, the next light, the next light, the next light, the next light, and you can't even see the end. You're going to need a room that big to put the hard drives in
Yes.
and wire them up to be able to manage all that data.
And that's one person. And we got to do your brain. And then later we'll get around to me and
And
James.
the last thing I guess we should think about, which we don't have to worry about with dogs, is if I'm going to download your brain, even if you agree to it, what's in there you don't want anybody to know? And will you have control over your brain, or will I control it? And will I say, okay, President, tell us the truth. How many times were you on Epstein's plane? Go ahead, tell us. How many times did you go to the island? Because you're not going to have free will. Do you lose your free will when I move your brain someplace else?
They'll
Or to
develop some
another
filters, some parental filters.
Yeah.
Some the free will filter.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that ethical part
There's
of it.
all of this stuff that we've never thought about. And then the next part of it is how seductive it is nowadays for us. We're not comfortable thinking of our demise, and we want to be left, right? So I spend every day trying to create a library of my legacy in film or music or books or
Articles.
And as far as I'm aware, the web will live on forever until someone has a switch that turns it off. I had a kid I worked with, a very bright kid with autism. He was 9, and he wrote this little book because he wanted to write a book. And then he illustrated it, and his parents had it bound, right? And it's I don't remember the name of his hero. The title of the book was So and So Finds the Controls to Everything. And he under a tree, he opens a secret hatch, and he goes down into a tunnel, and there are switches that control everything in the world, right? And okay, that's it, internet's done. Turn it all off.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, we have had another season, 16 shows of brains and something,
And something.
right? And we might revisit our greatest hits and put a compilation together of our best moments But we will be back. And if any of you listening have an idea for what our topic should be, let me know.
Yeah, what do your brains want to discuss?
Yeah,
Let us know.
And I think as we expand out and we look at sort of more complex human instincts, things like jealousy and rivalry, which I think have a role. Bob and I are in the middle of a book, a trade book.
I was going to say, you
Jealousy,
have a new book.
rivalry, and competition, harnessing your worst instincts for life success.
Wow.
Because those phenomena evolved because they had survival value. A little jealousy, a little anger, a little competition. If you manage it, probably plays a constructive role. So telling kids, don't be jealous, don't compete, don't look the kind of current state of affairs, I think is taking us the wrong way.
There you go.
So we'll see, and hopefully the world will still be here in 12 months when we try and do it again. We'll see. You
Keep
never
your
know.
brains
Fingers
safe.
crossed. Yeah, that's right. Keep your brains healthy. Thank you, Brainers, for being with us. And we'll see you again real soon.
Just because we said it doesn't mean it's true. You're on your own.